Our games, and I'm here as I usually am on Wednesday at 10 o'clock Central to hang out and chat with you for an hour. Again, I'm here to answer any questions you have, any non-spoiler questions in particular, to share Stonemaier Games news, what's going on here at Stonemaier Games right now, and to discuss some random topics too, just some fun stuff. I should mention today, so today is a day when we would normally send out our monthly e-newsletter. However, we're doing something a little bit different this month. Friday is April Fool's Day, and we have a few little surprises for April Fool's Day. They are real things that we are doing, but they are kind of silly. And so we're going to bump our newsletter to Friday, which we haven't done in a long time. I think it's been on Wednesday for a long, long time. So we're going to do it on Friday. And that also means that I'm going to be live on Friday. I don't know the exact time yet. I probably stick to the 10 a.m. time slot on Friday to hang out and chat. So I'm mentioning this because today I may not be here for a full hour. I may just hang out for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, because I'm also going to be live on Friday at 10 a.m. as well. But we'll see how it goes. In addition to that, on April 13th, the plan is to send out another e-newsletter to officially announce and start to reveal, in fact, with a pretty big reveal, I think, what we're planning for the new viticulture expansion. And so that news will not be coming on April 1st because we're doing kind of fun, silly stuff that day. And then we'll do viticulture expansion on April 13th. That's not the pre-order. That's when we start to reveal what that expansion is all about. All right, let's see. If we have some, we already have some questions here. I know Carlos comes prepared with some questions, so let's see. Carlos says, last weekend I got to play Libertalia for the first time, and I should say that I love it. I saw this post on Twitter. Carlos, I think, now has every single Stonemaier game. Thank you, Carlos, for collecting the whole collection of Stonemaier games. He says, the simultaneous action of cards makes the game quick and gives you opportunities to feel sneaky, which I love in games. I love little ways to feel sneaky. And the components complete the feeling of being a pirate. Thank you. I love hearing that. He says, I must say that the choice of anthropomorphic animals is awesome because it gives more freedom in how the characters are designed, giving them much more personality. I love that you said that. Yeah, that's a big bonus when you go with different animals and a huge variety of different animals in the game as created and selected by artist Lamaro Smith. I'm really glad to hear that. Thank you for sharing that, Carlos. George is here. I see Dominic here. Will says, any more news on the Wingspan big box or expansion? I don't have any big news here, Will, although there's a little thing. I spent some time on Monday updating the nesting box page of our website. So if you go check out the nesting box page on our website, you're going to see a page that looks much more like a product page instead of just kind of an ongoing design diary. Here's what's happening here. Let me get your thoughts page that we had before. So you can check out that. It's on our website right now, the nesting box page for Wingspan. And one little part on there that I updated is that we're planning to release it and do pre-order/release in early Q4 2022. So that's estimating essentially October. That's what we're estimating right now. And one thing that I did reveal on the page is that the nesting box, the first printing of the nesting box, will include the new Wingspan expansion inside the box. We priced it out and we decided that with freight shipping the way it is right now, we just could not offer what we thought was a reasonable price for the nesting box by itself. Whereas if we add the expansion inside, it creates a much more reasonable value proposition, we think. The downside of that, as a few people have pointed out in the comments on that page, is that if you want a localized version of the new expansion, but you don't care which language the nesting box comes in because it's language independent, you're a little screwed there. However, you're not actually, because our localization partners are very likely to also make the nesting box. It'll just be in a slightly delayed print run because their Wingspan expansion will also be delayed. Because not delayed. Delayed isn't the right word. It's staggered. It's a staggered release because they have to actually translate the English files, which we just recently completed. So even if you don't want the English version of the expansion, you will be able to get the nesting box from our localization partners, probably with their version of the expansion inside of it. And we are hoping that eventually freight shipping prices are much more reasonable. And when they are, we will ideally be able to make the nesting box, without anything inside of it, without any expansion inside of it, which was the original plan. Just it's not feasible right now with freight shipping costs, especially for a product that big. It's a giant box. Hey, Suzanne, Jacqueline, Tim, Nicola, Tara, Terry, lots of people joining us from Alaska. Terry actually just yesterday wore a t-shirt that I bought while I was in Alaska recently. It was from a brewery, forgetting the name of the brewery now, but you might see that shirt show up in some videos soon because Tuesday is my YouTube video filming day. Nathan says, looks like I'll be flying from LA to St. Louis for Geekway again this year. That's awesome, Nathan. Hopefully I'll get to play Ark Nova and Libertalia. Did you provide copies of Libertalia for the play and win for Geekway, or is that something you can't reveal? I can not only reveal that, Nathan, that we have provided Libertalia copies to Geekway to the West for their play and win section, but we've also provided copies of the Viticulture expansion. So that'll be after the pre-order, and so you might already have your copy of the Viticulture expansion by then. Geekway is in mid-May. But yeah, for anyone who was curious about that expansion, it will be available, hopefully in the hotness of the play and win at Geekway to the West in mid-May. Hey, Tony, Chad, Molly, Will. George says he's excited for round 2 of Rolling Realms later today. Yesterday was crazy with all those 1s, 2s, and 1s, 3s. Yeah, George is referring to an odd thing that happened yesterday a couple odd things that happened yesterday with Rolling Realms. I did a round 1 of game 21, live play 21 of Rolling Realms in the Rolling Realms Facebook group, and then later on YouTube. However, Facebook didn't record it on Facebook when it was visible live, but I couldn't stop the recording, end it, and download it and put it on YouTube. And so I had a very good round on the first live play yesterday, but I couldn't use that footage for YouTube, and so I had to re-record it, not live. And that round was very different. It was not as easy, way harder, with different roles. Which actually is almost kind of nice that you can get that level of replayability from Rolling Realms using the same exact realms, because the rolls of the dice can be different every time you play, or will be different every time you play. So feel free to join me too for round 2 today. I'll probably do it around 12:30, 1 o'clock Central Time, and I will try it in the Rolling Realms Facebook group, but within a few seconds I'll be able to tell if it's actually doing the weird non-recording thing or not, and if it is, I'll switch over and do a non-live play and then put it on YouTube right away so it feels kind of live. I prefer the truly live version, though, so I can see what other people are saying while I play live. Louise says, does Stonemaier have any project ongoing related to Scythe, an expansion, or spin-off in the same universe? I would love, Louise, to someday explore a new game in the Scythe universe. Not an expansion. You said an expansion. Not an expansion. We're done making Scythe content. But in the 1920-plus universe that Scythe is set in, I would love to explore that universe someday in a completely different game, like a sequel to Scythe, something like that. Because it is such a vibrant world, and Jakob does such interesting things with art and world building. Yeah. I'd love to do that someday. Kevin says, will I be attending Gen Con this year? I don't have plans to attend Gen Con. I think there will be a presence for Stonemaier games there, maybe through some of my coworkers, and probably, almost definitely, now through MeepleSource. Prior to the pandemic, MeepleSource had a big booth at Gen Con where they showcased MeepleSource stuff, but also showcased a bunch of Stonemaier stuff. And so Stonemaier games will have a presence there through MeepleSource, but I personally won't be there. Nicholas says, Geekway has listed their play to win section and only a few Stonemaier games in there. Do you also play Stonemaier games in the library, or do you bring your own? Yeah, I think we have a total of, we donated a lot to Geekway. I think 24 total boxes of products. I think it's Libertalia, probably Rolling Realms and Red Rising, and then the Viticulture expansion off the top of my head. And Nicholas, at Geekway, I'm happy to I often, here's what I do at Geekway. I typically walk around, and if someone's playing one of our games, I check in and say, hey, do you have any rules questions? I'm happy to help out while you're playing this. I try to stay away from teaching the games unless it's pretty fast. Like I'll teach Rolling Realms really fast because that kind of, it locks me in for a long time. But I definitely like to be there to help out as people have questions or with just an initial quick teach. I'm happy to help out with. But I typically don't play our games from start to finish because one of the things I love to do at Geekway is learn games from people who love those games. And so prior to Geekway, I'll post a list of the games that I'm most interested in learning and playing for the first time. And hopefully someone else will already own one of those games or love one of those games and want to teach and play that game with me. I know that's maybe a little bit selfish or self-centered, but I try to make it about others too. I don't want to force anyone to play these games, but they're games that I'm genuinely interested in playing, and I try to find people who genuinely love those games already and are eager to teach them, and then I play those games. So that's my ideal Geekway experience, if possible. But yeah, you never know what happens. I'm pretty flexible at Geekway. Tim says, how will you label the nesting box to show that it contains the expansion, or is that not necessary since it isn't retail? Yeah, the first printing won't be a retail product. The pricing, the cost and pricing doesn't really work out to make it a retail product. But yeah, for the first printing, we don't really need to label it because we'll be very clear on our web store saying that this box includes the expansion inside of it. The physical box itself doesn't really need that information. But we will at least put a unique barcode on it. So in the future, if we make a version of the nesting box with nothing inside of it, that will have a different barcode. Otherwise, it'll look pretty darn similar. Chad says, not sure if you read Dark Matter yet, but Blake Crouch just announced that they are making an Apple TV 9-episode series out of the story, and Joel Edgerton will star in it. Yeah, I actually just saw that on Slash Film yesterday, and I am really excited about that. I have read Dark Matter, thanks to your recommendation, Chad, and really enjoyed it. Right now, I am reading, just to segue a little bit into what I'm reading and watching, I'm reading a book called The Kaiju Preservation Society by John Scalzi, and it's awesome. It's like Jurassic Park, but with kaiju, and it's really good. I love John Scalzi's work. And right now we're watching Upload Season 2 as our short, kind of funny, little thinky lunchtime show. And at nighttime, we're watching Survivor. We're going to start Moon Knight soon. And do we have another ongoing show? What else are we watching at night? We just started something. Megan, what are we watching at night? We just watched it yesterday. I am blanking on what we're... Oh, well, we finished Top Chef. Maybe we don't have a nighttime show. Okay. Megan says we haven't started one right now. Oh no, we started. Well, we watched Halo last night. We have a bunch of shows that we can't binge basically, so it's a little harder to remember. But yeah, we started the Halo show last night, which is pretty good, really high production quality. Good morning, Eric. Mark says viticulture expansion ? That announcement will come on April 13th, Mark. And part of the reason for that is. Some of the feedback that we got and things that I've been thinking about are tightening the gap between when I start to reveal a new product and when you can actually pre-order it. Even though the gap is also already really tight, I think it could be a little tighter. And so the plan right now is to do the announcement on April 13th and then do a pre-order a few weeks later, probably 3 weeks later, but it could be 2 or 4 weeks depending on freight shipping. So I'm aiming for, definitely we're gonna do an April 13th announcement and probably a big reveal. I might even reveal the full rulebook on that first day and then delve deeper into each of the components and the stories behind the components in the design diary. Or I might just reveal, talk freely about it on day one instead of holding back information like I usually do for a more staggered reveal. Talk freely about it and then still reveal the rulebook as a big reveal 9 days in. So I'm kind of debating that right now. Right now I'm leaning towards releasing the full rulebook, but not going deep into any of the components until I do that on a day-to-day basis. We'll see though. I'm open to your feedback too. If you're watching now, you want to offer some feedback about that, I'm wide open to hearing that. Scott says that he received his Libertalia and Rolling Realms promos for Rolling Realms, and he says, we love it a lot, and I enjoyed the Automa. Thanks, Scott. I love hearing that. I love hearing good things about the solo modes in our games, which I have no impact on at all. That's all Automa Factory and Morton and David and Carol and their team. I think they do a wonderful job, and I'm glad you're enjoying it. Good morning, Tim. Mark is here as well. Mark and Tim, I think, played along yesterday for the Rolling Realms live play. And... yeah, Mark says it's time to renew his Stonemaier Champion subscription. I actually renewed my own Stonemaier Champion subscription yesterday. I'm a champion too, partially just so I can make sure the champion system is working. But yeah, I'm a Stonemaier champion like many of you, and I appreciate those of you who are Stonemaier champions. If you don't know what that is when you sign up for a 1-year membership to Stonemaier Games, basically, and you pay $15, or at least the US equivalent of $15. And that gives you 20% off every single order you place from the Stonemaier Games web store for an entire year. And you also get priority shipping whenever we do a pre-order. And then just in general priority shipping, your orders are prioritized above non-champion orders. And you also get a special e-newsletter once a month. We're going to send that tomorrow for champions. And in that e-newsletter, I'll be hinting a little bit at what we're going to do the next day on April 1st, because we have a little surprise for April 1st. 2 surprises, actually. One is a product surprise, one is a video surprise. Justin says he has a fun hypothetical question. Oh, this looks intense. He says you have been transported to a new universe that is an exact copy as ours. However, there's one thing different in board games. In this universe, board game designers have discovered a way that when a game is packed up and you're done playing it, the contents in the box do not move. They only move once the box has been opened. With this knowledge, would you prefer your games to be stored horizontal or vertical? Me personally, I've always preferred vertical, and I appreciate the Stonemaier Games boxes have art for both vertical and horizontal displays. In this universe, most of my games are horizontal because of the components going everywhere in this universe. I think I prefer the vertical format, just because it's easier to remove games from the shelf rather than if you have the horizontal format and you want the game at the bottom of the stack, you have to kind of lift up and remove all the other games. So I prefer the vertical format in general. Yeah, even in the alternate universe. What about other people? Does anyone store their boxes horizontally, or do you prefer vertically? There's some game boxes that I can't store vertically. Looking at my shelf right now, like my kind of old school boxes. Scotland. Actually, no, maybe I've made Scotland Yard work vertically. Everything falls everywhere in Scotland Yard, and Stratego goes everywhere if you store the old school box vertically. Justin says, what are some of your favorite games to show people that aren't in the hobby what this hobby is all about? I have a list of favorite gateway games, Justin. Let me see what that list is. I have a terrible memory once I've actually posted a list. Okay. Gateway games. So some of my favorite gateway games to show people are, I'll go from 10 to 1. Between Two Cities, I included one Stonemaier Games on the list. Codenames, Dice Miner, Sushi Go, Deep Sea Adventure, Ink and Gold, Just One, Patchwork, The Mind, and Mysterium Park are some of my favorite gateway games to show people who are interested in the hobby. And I go, if you look for that video on my channel, I go deep into why I selected those games and why I ordered them in that specific order. Dan is joining us today. Hey, Dan, Josh. Josh says, what brand of disc do I throw or most like for disc golf? He says he mostly throws dynamic. Do you follow the pros on DGPT and Jomez Pro? I mostly follow Jomez Pro, and yes, yeah, definitely. If so, who's your favorite? And he's really excited for the viticulture expansion. Lots of questions there. I like Innova discs the most. I mostly throw Innova, and I do follow Jomez. I like a bunch of the different pros. I like different styles and methods. Like I like Eagle, Big Germ. I like to see him do well, especially because his commentary is so great. I like Nate Sexton. I like Ricky Wysocki. And Paul Macbeth. Paul Macbeth is incredible. I like to see what he does. Yeah, it seems a fairly friendly sport. They seem to all root for each other and get excited for each other when they have a good throw. So I kind of like that sense of camaraderie. And speaking of disc golf, we have a kind of an increasingly big group of disc golfers who play here in St. Louis, and we went out to a course called Jefferson Barracks in St. Louis this past weekend. And Brian Surrey, who you might know, or some of you might know this person because he is the game designer of Merchants of the Dark Road and a few other games too. He hit his first ever ace in front of like 8 of us. So it was a big group of people watching him. We all watched this disc go in from 350 feet away, and it was awesome. Like, we celebrated together. That's the great thing about disc golf. You don't get down when someone else has an awesome play. You get excited for them. And yeah, it was so cool to see Brian's first ace on a very difficult shot, a very windy day to get an ace. Yeah, that was really cool. So if you are a fan of Brian's work for Merchants of the Dark Road and any of his other games, feel free to congratulate him about his first disc golf ace. Jaden says, I know one came out recently, but curious if you have a timeline for the next Rolling Realms promo. Will Rolling Realms keep expanding for a while, or do you have an end for Rolling Realms in mind? Now, I definitely don't have an end for Rolling Realms in mind at this point. We have several batches of promo realms in the works. We're making them in batches of 6, but we will release them probably on an every other month basis. And we're making lots of them, so we don't want anyone to feel like they need to order them right away when we make them. And I don't exactly have I don't exactly know the next month that it'll be available. Okay, sorry. Facebook is scrolling past questions. If I missed your question, if you missed one, if you posted a question like 7 minutes ago, I definitely just missed it. I'm sorry. Steven says, have I ever visited the St. Louis Chess Club or the World Chess Hall of Fame in St. Louis? I have. Yeah, I definitely have. It's a really cool place. A few of you are asking for expansion, Wingspan, or Viticulture expansion news, and Wingspan probably too, but Viticulture expansion news will start on April 13th. Eric recommended the book Red Shirts by John Scalzi, and I definitely recommend that as well. I agree, Eric. That's a great book. Dave also recommends the show that we're watching right now, Upload. Christopher says, let's see, Viticulture is probably his favorite game ever. Sorry if you're repeating, but what is the new expansion going to add? We're going to talk about that on April 13th. I'm really excited to talk about the Viticulture expansion. And I know I'm kind of delaying that a little bit, but I promise you're going to get a ton of information about that expansion right on April 13th. You're not going to have to wait any longer after that. You'll get a ton of information that day. George says, so basically the Wingspan box will be limited on the first print run. Hopefully I'll be there in time to pre-order one when the time will come. Well, I mean, in a way, like all the stuff that we make is limited for a short period of time because we make something and then we accept pre-orders for it. It's already made. And so if we make 5,000 units of something, the limit for that day or that week or that month is 5,000 units. But then we'll make more. We'll definitely make more, especially if we sell out. We'll make more of that later. So for anything we make, there is a temporary limit to it, and then we'll make more. Molly says that she played Terra Mystica based on my recommendation, and I'm really loving getting into it. That's great, Molly. I'm glad to hear that. She says, I'm loving the Terra Mystica card in Rolling Realms more now, too. Yeah, that's one of the things I love about these promo realms in Rolling Realms that are about other games. Hopefully, if someone plays one of those realms and they're like, oh, I really like this mini game, they might also try this other wonderful game that it's tied to. And maybe vice versa, too. I'm hoping for some crossover both ways. Blake says, Terra Mystica reskin with a Scythe theme when? Scythe itself is actually, it's not a reskin at all, but Scythe was inspired by Terra Mystica and Kemet. Those are the two main inspirations for the game. So if you're looking for a Terra Mystica reskin, that is Scythe, or if you want the space version of it, you can go get Gaia Project. Scott says he's been enjoying the Cradle series by Will White, and he said he just had a Kickstarter to print the first 3 novels. Awesome. Yeah, I haven't read any of Will's work. Jerry says, have I checked out Unpub at Origins Game Fair? I haven't. Stonemaier Games actually runs our own Unpub style event called the Stonemaier Games Design Day. That'll be in September. No, maybe it'll be in October this year. It's usually in September or October. So I've never actually attended an Unpub event, but from everything I've read about it and heard about it, it inspired something similar that we do at Stonemaier Games. Yeah. Adam says, but it'll be a Stonemaier Fool's Day. No, sorry. But it'll be an April Fool's Day, so do you really have 2 announcements? Yeah, I mean, Adam, I try to be careful about this with April Fools. Nothing I announce on April Fools is a joke. I'm not trying to fool you with anything. Anything I share that day will be a real thing that you can either watch or you can buy or you can use, things like that. So I kind of decided that early on in the Stonemaier Games world. That I don't want to trick you. I don't want to mislead you in any way about anything at any given time, even for April Fools. Anything I do for April Fools will be a real thing, but it might be a little sillier than normal. John says, has Ark Nova gotten you thinking about creating a heavier Stonemaier game or just into heavier games in general? Are those games any more difficult to design? I think any game is really difficult to design. Simple games can be really a real big challenge. A heavier game like Ark Nova can be a really challenge. It has made me want to venture, like we've kind of veered a little bit lighter, like medium light with Libertalia, Red Rising, Rolling Realms. And I'm going to veer, at least for our next few games, we're going to veer back into the medium/medium heavy realm. Not necessarily inspired by Ark Nova by any means. These are games that have been in works for a while now. But Ark Nova was a good reminder to me that I do like a certain style of medium heavy to heavy game where the action selection system is really streamlined. I did a full video about Ark Nova and my love for it and the design and production lessons that I learned from it. That was this video from this past Sunday. And Monday's blog post was actually a guest post from our diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant, Lydia Waymeyer. She posted about inclusivity at conventions and how you can be a more inclusive person, more welcoming person at conventions. And not you, me. I should make this about myself. Like I learned a lot from Lydia's post about how I can be a more welcoming attendee in person at conventions. And then last Thursday, I posted a post that a lot of people seem to want to talk about, and that was an analysis of what makes an evergreen game. And it wasn't a post trying to say like you should do this if you want your game to be an evergreen game. Evergreen being a game that sells that you reprint from year to year, that you constantly sell, whether it's on your website or in retail, but probably a little combination of the two. So I analyzed games that have hit that metric from the data that I had access to at least, and some patterns that emerged by looking at those games, in case that might help someone make an evergreen game versus like a game that is really hot for a little while but then dies off, that type of thing. Yeah. Paul is joining us here. Paul is one of the disc golfers I play with. Paul is the designer of Honey Buzz. I get to play with all these amazing game designers. And Paul has had, three, four aces? I think maybe 4 or 5 aces at this point. Paul has been racking up these aces. Paul, let me know in the comments below if you're still watching this. I have, how many of your aces? I've witnessed one of Paul's aces, I believe. Yeah, I think just one. Chad says, how do you determine how many cards you need in a game? Like encounter, factory, objective cards inside. I mean, the main determining factor there is how many unique cards we think of, or that I think of that I can design. And I really try to pack them all into the game. I don't try to leave any out. There is also the slight design constraint of like how much art do you want to buy and how many cards can fit onto the card sheets. And so I often do look at the card sheets and say, okay, we have 54 cards on this card sheet. Let's maximize that, but let's not go over. And I actually have encountered that in a game that's going to print quite soon, where we are 2 cards over that number. And I don't know which cards to cut. So I'm trying to figure out what to do with all this empty space on this card sheet because I don't want to waste it. It definitely does add to the cost too. And so trying to figure out what to do there, but I haven't heard back from Panda yet about that. But it's an interesting challenge there. If you delve just like a little bit into a new card sheet and then you're printing a bunch of blank space, which I don't want to do. Chris says, Geekway has published their play and win list. What are you looking forward to playing at Geekway? You know, I haven't actually looked at Geekway's play and win list, but I need to do that. I'll leave myself a note to do that. Geekway play and win. I have my own list of games that I'm looking forward to playing. I'm going to post that on my blog a little bit closer to Geekway. We're still about a month and a half away from Geekway, but I'll have to see if any of those games happen to be on that list, or if any games on the list are really intriguing to me. What about you, Chris? What are you on Geekway's play and win list? What are you looking forward to playing? Okay, let's see. I'll stop with questions for a second, jump over to my topics. Games that I played recently and filmed videos about and just played. I played Gugong last night. I played Space for the first time on Board Game Arena. I've played many games of Space. I played it for the first time on Board Game Arena specifically recently and love it. I played Skull King and Brian Boru for the first time recently and really enjoyed both of them. Both of them are trick-taking games, very different trick-taking games, and I had a lot of fun with both of them. I watched the movie Licorice Pizza over the weekend. Oh, and on Friday we did something fun. As a Stonemaier Games team, we got together and did a virtual lunch, which sounds a little outlandish, but Joe moved from St. Louis to Reno, and so we don't get to just sit down and have a casual lunch with Joe anymore, which we used to do every month or so at Stonemaier Games. So we just get together and go out to a restaurant and have lunch. And we even did that very rarely over the pandemic too. So it was nice just to get together and hang out. And even nicer is that Morton, who was a part-time employee at Stonemaier Games, Morton lives in Denmark, so we never get to have lunch with Morton. And Morton was able to join us as well. It was really nice, I will say. So I don't know if any of you have worked for companies where a lot of the work is remote or at home and you rarely get together. But it was really nice just to get together and hang out and chat and not have an agenda. It wasn't a meeting. It was just, let's sit down and have a lunch and connect with each other. Really great. It was really, really nice. That was on Friday. What else? I did some play testing over the weekend. We got another booster shot. I got a COVID booster shot, my second booster shot. And I think that's all the topics that I had for today. So I'll just go down for questions for the remaining time here. Tony says, last night our 4-player gaming group pulled out Villainous and its expansions. While our group does suffer from some AP on occasion, the game time on the box is listed at 45 to 60 minutes. Our game took nearly 3 hours to complete. This seems to be a common occurrence where the game time on the box of a game seems way understated. What goes into determining the length of a game, and do you feel they are intentionally lowered to make the games more attractive to a casual audience? I'll say our method. I don't know what other companies do. My method is to look at the playtest data and we ask playtesters to report the time, and we use that data to determine the time on the box. and I stagger it based on player count. But I can say from behind the scenes that in general, like I'm trying to hit a certain time slot for a game, and I also try to change the design of the game to hit that playing time. And when I ask playtesters for that time, it includes setup, playing the game, and cleanup. It doesn't include teaching the game, which can definitely add to the game length. But and also playtesters maybe are a little, maybe that isn't even the best data to use because playtesters are they already know how to play, they things like that. So yeah, I don't know if that's the best data to use. That's how we use it, and I can certainly say that there is a slight inclination to lower that playing time on the box a little bit to make it more appealing. But I can see the exact opposite happening. Like if you put 45 to 60 minutes on a box, especially for a game like Villainous, where the length of the game is largely determined by the players and not by a timer set by the game, that some extra flexibility is needed there, and you might need to cushion that quite a bit. I don't think I've ever played Villainous, even two players, in that short of a playing time. But yeah, that's and even for our games, I'm sure there are many of our games that play like Wingspan. Is Wingspan really a 45 to 70 minute game? That was what our playtest data suggested, but every 5 player game of Wingspan that I've ever played has easily gone 90 minutes, maybe even longer. So hitting that 70 minute number is maybe a little unlikely. Yeah. Aurelian says, I played several games of Libertalia and I'm really enjoying it. I can now see how big the impact of the hand composition is on the game, which is truly great. I wondered if it could be interesting to work on different scenarios with a different type of synergies and flavors, at least for the starting hands. Do you think that could be a good idea? I love that idea from a kind of a fan perspective. So if you want to create like a thematic hand of cards where this is the story behind why you have these specific characters, and share that on the Libertalia Facebook group or on Board Game Geek. I love that. I would love the idea of people doing that. That's a really cool idea. Blake says, would you consider doing fan polls to choose some Rolling Realms promos? I believe I did ask ambassadors about which Rolling Realms, which games they would like to see in Rolling Realms. So I have done a poll about that specifically to Stonemaier ambassadors. I'm open to doing a more open poll. Maybe we can do that at some point in the future. I don't want, and I have listened to what people have said for quite some time about what games they would like to see in promo realms for Rolling Realms. I do need to make it clear, though, if we do a poll like that, that I really have no control over whether or not we actually get the rights to make that realm, because we have to go to the publisher and say, hey, here's the deal. Here's what we're willing to pay for the rights to make this realm. Are you open to doing that? And some publishers have definitely said no. In fact, some of the most often request realms, the publisher said no to them. So I'm open to doing that. Totally open to doing that. In fact, you could start the poll right now, Blake, if you wanted. You could start it in the Rolling Realms Facebook group. But I just want to maybe put a little cautionary note in there that even like the top pick doesn't mean that we'll be able to actually make that realm. Yeah. Andrew says, so you have to have one card sheet per unit. You can't have card sheets that must be split into 2 boxes. You can do that, Andrew. That does happen. Like I don't think that our printer likes to do it, but it is possible. Like if you have a card sheet that holds 60 cards, but you only have 28 to 30 cards, I think it is possible to print 2 sets on that same card sheet. If it's a nice even divide like that. I don't know how far down they go. Like a half maybe they'll do that, but a third maybe they won't do that. But definitely not just for 2 cards. I don't think they can print just like 2 cards and just replicate those same 2 cards throughout that card sheet. Maybe there's a more optimal way to do it, but I mean they're printing so many copies of these card sheets, and they're trying to do it really, really quickly, and printing and cutting and then sorting and then either shrink wrapping or using some other method to bind the deck all through the machines fast. So I don't know. Maybe, I'm sure there's some element of production here that I'm not understanding as to why they don't do that more often. Yeah, that's a great question. Trishul says, what version or print run code should I look for if I want to buy Tapestry with all the latest updates or adjustments, or is this present only online as of now? Nothing actually in Tapestry. That's a good question. every print run of Tapestry, as far as I can remember, is exactly the same, except for maybe some very minor typos fixed, but exactly the same. All of the adjustments we offer on a printable sheet on our website, and they come in the expansions. And again, they're just a sheet of paper saying, here are the starting adjustments for a few of the different civilizations. And that's printed in the expansions themselves. So from one print run to the next, Tapestry is actually exactly the same. We are, however, working on what we think will be one final batch of adjustments. And when we do that, we are going to reprint some of the civilizations in like a little slim update pack. So you can finally have the civs with those adjustments built into the civilizations themselves. That is the plan. Don't hold me to that yet. That's the plan. That's what we're thinking. We have to budget it out, make sure it works, make sure make sure we can truly say definitively that these are the final adjustments, which is the tough thing to do. But yeah, that's the plan right now. But it won't happen inside any of the reprints of Tapestry. It'll be an update pack. Yeah. So you can safely buy any copy of Tapestry right now, and then use the updates found on our website for a few of the civ adjustments. Yeah. Tim says, could the extra cards be made as promos on your website? Could the extra cards be made as promos on your website? The extra cards. So Tim, are you asking like for those 2 extra cards where we've gone over onto a new card sheet? Could we make those cards promos instead? We could, but the problem is like we don't want to cut any of the cards. Yeah, like all these cards are integral to the game itself, and so having them as cards you need to print. Yeah, I don't know if that would solve the problem. I see what you're saying there. If we had 2 cards that were kind of on the fence, but we don't have any like that. They're all necessary. Yeah. Jerry says, for Gugong, which I played last night, did you get to play the hard to find deluxe version or the regular one? My friend that I played with does indeed, it was a 5-player game, and the friend who owns the game does indeed have the fancy deluxe version, and it is really, really nice. I haven't played with the non-deluxe version. But yeah, it's a beautiful deluxe version. Chris is looking at the Geekway Play and Win list, and he says he's looking to play Roar and Write, Seven Wonders, Architects, Cascadia, Furnace, Great Western Trail, Libertalia, Winds of Galecrest. Like to hear that. Now or Never, Parks with Nightfall, and The Hunger. Of that list, I played most of them. The Hunger is definitely on my list, or it should be. Let's see if The Hunger is actually on my list. Because I intend it to be The Hunger. It isn't. Need to add The Hunger to the list. Okay, The Hunger. That one's definitely on my list. I like Richard Garfield a lot, and I like Clank-style deck building, so I'm very curious about that. Kevin says, I mentioned that I played Skull King recently for the first time. Kevin says his wife won the Skull King tournament at SaltCon, and the prize was tickets and a hotel stay at Gen Con. That's a very nice prize, which is half the reason we'll be attending Gen Con this year. That's awesome, Kevin. That's really, really cool. Well done to your wife. Congratulations. Susanna's part of the Stonemaier Games team. Susanna was at lunch with us. So Susanna was at the inaugural virtual lunch at Stonemaier Games, where it was Joe, me, Alex, Morton, and Susanna. And Alan was invited, of course, but Alan wasn't available to do it. Chad noticed that Walter is hanging out on a new cat bed. So yeah, I got... so this tells a little bit. So Panda started doing this really neat thing where they celebrate when their clients, like Stonemaier Games, Panda is our manufacturer, they celebrate when clients print a certain number of copies of a certain game. And Wingspan we've printed 1 million copies of Wingspan at this point, over 1 million. And we've also printed, their other threshold that they decided was 100,000. We've printed 100,000 copies of Viticulture, Scythe, and Red Rising. And more than that for Viticulture and Scythe. And a little bit more than that for Red Rising. But the Wingspan award came in a very big box, and we had some nice padding come in that box. And I decided to put that padding down instead of that chair that's been sitting by the window for so long. And it's mostly Biddy's bed right now, but Walter seems to have claimed it today and is enjoying it. It's a very soft, like foamy pad that he's enjoying there. Trishul says, what's my favorite game set in or including St. Louis? Well, a lot of games at Stonemaier Games have little hints at St. Louis. We have like the Arch in many of our games. We have the area code 314 in many of our games, or a few of our games. So a lot of our games have like a little Easter egg for St. Louis. Favorite game set in St. Louis? I haven't played World's Fair 1904, but I think that World's Fair was indeed in St. Louis. What are some St. Louis set games? I can't think of a game Let me know. What are some games set in St. Louis that you're aware of? I'm not thinking of any off the top of my head. There are a few probably games that have like St. Louis on the map in that game. Ivan says, I saw you played many interesting board games lately like Anno 1800 and Gugong. I would like to hear some more about your experience with those games because they're on my wish list. Well, Gugong, I definitely have a YouTube video about from a while ago because I played Gugong for the first time a couple years ago. Anno 1800, you can hear my thoughts on a video that came out just the other day. When did I post that? The Anno 1800 video was yesterday. That was my video yesterday. So yeah, check out my YouTube channel for yesterday's video about Anno 1800. Yeah, I really enjoyed the trading mechanism in it in particular. Trading, I don't know if trading is exactly the right word, but you can use things that your opponents have created and vice versa. Justin says, in games like Libertalia, how do you determine the currency denominations? I noticed in AEG's new game, Dead Reckoning, they used 1, 3, 10, and 30, which I found a little odd. Not bad, just never noticed that type of denomination before. For the lower numbers, I look at I almost always include ones. You need ones, right? And then it's a debate between like 2, 3, and 5, or some combination of them. And I often look at the abilities in the games to see if are we often telling players to pick up 2 coins, or are we more often asking them to pick up 3 coins or 5 coins. And then beyond that, usually it's debate for me between 10 and 20, or 10 and 20. And usually that debate is like, if I have a 5 in the game, then I might jump up to 20, might go down to 10. But at that point, it's just like covering what is needed for the game, whether like how many coins do people typically get in the game, and basing the denominations off of that. For me, like the biggest debate is usually between 2 and 3. And that goes down to just the abilities in the game. If they're asking you more often to gain 2 coins or 3 coins. Yeah. Molly says, would you ever put achievements into a game again? They're a little fun extra inside that I always hope to see them in games. I've thought about it in a lot of games and seem to be deciding against doing it more often than not. I don't know exactly why. I think part of it is that it creates a one-time use component in the game, but you can always print it out again. And I guess I always worry about the motivation. Like I want players to have lots of intrinsic motivations in games. And having that achievement sheet, I don't know if that's a fun motivation for a lot of people, or maybe it's motivating them in a way that isn't inherently fun. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it because it is fun with Scythe. I think it is fun with My Little Scythe. I thought about doing it for Libertalia and I didn't do it. Maybe I should have. And sometimes it's just like one more thing. Like we have so much going into these games, and then I'm like, oh shoot, okay, should we actually add one more thing to this game, whether we're pushing the budget or just the amount of stuff that's already in the game. So Molly, I'm glad to hear that feedback. And if others like those achievement sheets and use those achievement sheets, then I definitely need to consider doing that more often. But so far recently, it's ended up being an afterthought, and I figure if something is an afterthought, maybe I shouldn't put it in the game. That's maybe the best way to summarize it. Tim says, is there a possible timeline for the Tapestry neoprene mat? We are indeed leaning towards making a neoprene mat or board for Tapestry. And in fact, that reminds me of something else I need to check on. And I don't have a timeline for it yet, Tim. We haven't gone to production with anything regards to that yet. We have a sample in the works, but that's it right now. Yeah, a revised sample. Jerry says, after Red Rising, have you considered taking on other grand sci-fi universes? I want to create them. I don't know if there's any other specific ones that I want to take on as an IP. He says he'd love to see Samar do a mid-weight game series based on Isaac Asimov's Foundation and Robot universe. So many great concepts and stories in that world to gamify. Definitely true. Yeah, I've read a little bit of the Robot universe. Foundation, I read, I think, one of the books when I was a kid, and I enjoyed the first season of the Apple TV version of that show, of that series. I think for me, Jerry, I have to really, really love the series. And there are only a few book series that I've fallen so deeply in love with that I want to continually immerse myself in it to the level of designing a board game, which takes, a lot of time and resources and work. So I think it's very rare that happens. It's not something that I do. It's not something I even do just because I think there's a big demand for it. We've been approached by some pretty significant IPs that have great sales numbers, but I'm just not as passionate about it. And so we typically decline those offers. So it takes a combination of a few different things for me to do that. Yeah. Darren says that the legal problems were somehow solved. Would you be interested in printing Glory to Rome? I don't know. Probably not. It's a game that doesn't fit all of the Stonemaier Games requirements. Like it doesn't really have a component hook to it. It's just I think it's just cards. Um, and I've never played it, so there's that too. I need to actually play it to see if it's a game that I have that passion about, similar to the passion about IPs. Yeah. Jay says, "Well, I'm curious what the commemorative item Panda gifted was, and for the like the Wingspan benchmark, milestone, and for Scythe and Viticulture. So for each of them, they sent us a little metal panda. Actually, not little. It was like this big panda that we have. Megan is delighted by these pandas. We have them on our in our kitchen right now. And also for Wingspan in particular, I can see it right now, but I can't point the camera because I'd spoil some other stuff for you. There's framed." A nice framed kind of plaque for Wingspan over here on the wall. Feels a little weird to get it myself. I know we're the publisher. We're the ones that created a million copies of this. Here's that Megan brought up with the panel. It's so heavy. This is so heavy. Like it looks maybe light right now. This is extremely heavy. If I dropped it on my desk, I would break my desk. But yeah, so there's glass, there's metal. It's a really nice giant panda figurine here. Anyway, I feel a little bit weird about having the Wingspan plaque on the wall, even though we are the publisher, because I always want to give credit for Wingspan to Elizabeth Hargrave, the designer of the game. The game wouldn't exist in any form without Elizabeth, and so I like for her to get the awards and the recognition and the achievements and things like that. But I guess but we are Panda's client. Elizabeth is not Panda's client, and so I could see why they sent us the award. Yeah. And it really, it's not an award. It's more like a commemorative plaque of reaching that 1 million unit threshold. Darian says achievement sheets can be added after release as print and play, and you could add more achievements to encourage more play variety that becomes apparent later. You know, Darian, I really like that. You know, if it is an afterthought for actually including it in the game, why not make it later? Why not make it a little less official looking? But anyone can use it, anyone can access it, anyone can download and print it and add to it, and we can enhance that and grow it as a community over time. Darian, I love that idea. I really love that. Maybe, yeah, I'll make a note about that. Achievements. Yeah, maybe we'll start doing that. I guess Libertalia is the newest game, so maybe we'll try that for Libertalia. Sean says, are you still taking five tracks designed for Tapestry? I think Sean is referring to the Tapestry neoprene board that we're considering, whether or not we're going to put the 5th track on that board. And the plan, yes, is to put all 5 tracks on that board itself. And for anyone wondering, like, well, what if you make an expansion someday with another track? We don't have plans to do that. We probably won't do that. And if we do, the neoprene mount will still work just fine, and you'll slide up just like you slide up next to the original Tapestry board. You slide up the arts track if you have the expansion. You can slide that right up next to the board and play easily from that perspective. I did get some great feedback when I posted in the Tapestry Facebook group about that neoprene board, and that made a big impact on the new sample that we're getting. Justin says, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there an idea of adding plastic trays or additions for Pendulum for the player mats to keep items organized? We did look into it, but we couldn't get the quality the way that we really wanted it with a reasonable price, so we decided not to make them. And instead, I encouraged the person, I think her name was Eugenia, and her husband created some really nice overlays for Pendulum. I encouraged them to just sell them on Etsy like that, and we're totally fine with that. Keith is jumping in here from Thunderworks. He says, Glory to Rome is my favorite card game of all time. I'd love to get the rights to it someday. So that I would love Keith to get the rights to Glory to Rome then, and that way I can play a copy, maybe even get to play it with Keith. And I'd love to see a Thunderworks version of Glory to Rome. That would be really, really cool. Ivan says, yesterday I played a social deduction game, Enigma Beyond Code. I was intrigued by an entry mechanism. If no one wins, the evil wins, which makes the game partially cooperative. However, if you try only to thwart evil, the other players might achieve the missions before you. An interesting mechanism, don't you think? I do think that's interesting, yeah. There are a few games that have a slightly like semi-cooperative element to it. The other one I can think of like that is Australia, Australia. Australia has a mechanism like that where the Cthulhu-like entity in the game can win, or a player can win. Yeah. Blake already posted the poll, for Rolling Realm. So if you want to share the game that you would like most to see in Rolling Realms as a promo, head over to the Rolling Realms Facebook group and add your thoughts to that poll. And hopefully Blake made the poll so you can just manually add your own idea to it and vote on the ideas that Blake built by default into the poll. Thanks, Blake, for doing that. Chad says, I'm considering upgrading my work desk. I know you have a desk that you can raise and lower. Do you find that you use that feature as much as you thought you would? I do. I use it quite a bit. I have an uplift desk. I really, really like it. And the feature that I didn't think I would want as much, that I wasn't sure, I was like, should I actually spend extra on this feature, was the pre-settings. So a lot of raise and lower desks have a little button that you push and you kind of hold down and the desk goes up, or you hold down that button and the desk goes down electronically, which is definitely good. I don't think you want a manual one. But the thing that I didn't know I wanted was that I could set like this level right now is my 3 button. I just press the button 3 and the desk automatically raises to this level. And when I want to go down and sit down, I press number 1 and it automatically goes down to that preset level. Definitely worth the money to get that. It's extra like $50. Definitely worth it. Darren says, I got a copy recently. Would love this. The Glory to Rome solo mode. So he may be talking to Keith here if Keith ever gets the rights to Glory to Rome. Trishul says, how many birds from Wingspan can you identify by yourself in the wild? To me, the running joke is that all birds are chickadees. And so I can identify one bird, and that bird will be a chickadee. Although maybe I could actually get a bald eagle and peregrine falcon and some other birds. And I'm halfway just joking here. I can probably identify maybe a handful of birds, but they're all chickadees to me. Yeah. Joseph says, I have the original version of Libertalia. How does your version of Libertalia differ from the original? Significantly. There is a whole page in the rulebook that outlines all the differences between the original Libertalia and our Libertalia. I'd recommend, it's almost too much to mention here, Joseph. I'll say a few things out loud, but the art is completely different. The setting is different. We have 40 characters, all of them redesigned compared to 30 in the original. There's a solo mode. There's a robust two-player mode, which was kind of one of the faults of the original Libertalia. There is a different reputation system, or there's a system called reputation for tiebreakers, which is very different in the original game. And the components are, I would say, significantly upgraded. Like the loot tokens are nice big light tokens, like an Azul, instead of little thin cardboard tokens. I don't want to knock on the original game. I love the original game, but we basically upgraded, enhanced, and improved everything. But also subjectively. That is all subjective. You might disagree that some of those things are upgraded. But check out our website for the rulebook and look for page 7 in the rulebook, and you can see every little thing that we changed and examined and updated. Yeah. Darren says, probably a question for Elizabeth. And actually, I need to make a note real quick because that reminded me of something. Okay. Forgot the other thing now. I'll come back to it. Darren says, probably a question for Elizabeth here. After all the Wingspan expansions come out, will that mean there's a card for every bird in the world? No, not even close. No, there are tens of thousands of birds in the world. And at most, I think we'd get up to 500, 600 cards. Maybe a little bit higher, but yeah, we won't even come close to that. Yeah. All right, I think I got to sign off today. We have some stuff to do today, but I love chatting with you for an hour. It went a little bit longer than I thought today because I will be joining you again on Friday for April Fool's Day around this same time to chat about some fun surprises. Fun, silly surprises. So I'll see you then. Thanks for joining me today. I'll throw this up on YouTube in case you have any other questions. I'm happy to answer them there. And have a great Wednesday. Take care. Bye.